Hello. Today I'm going to do another poem, this time by Charles Causley. It's called 10 Types of Hospital Visitor. The first enters wearing the neon armour of virtue, ceaselessly firing all-purpose smiles at everyone present. She destroys hope in the breasts of the sick, who realise instantly they are incapable of surmounting her ferocious goodwill. Such courage she displays in the face of human disaster. Fortunately, she does not stay long. After a speedy trip round the world, in the manner of a 1930s destroyer showing the flag in the Mediterranean, she returns home for a week. With luck, longer, scorched by the heat of her own worthiness. The second appears a melancholy splurge of theological colours, taps heavily about like a healthy vulture, disturbing deep frozen hope. The patients gaze at him cautiously, most of them, as yet uncertain of their realities of heaven, hellfire, or eternal emptiness, play for safety by accepting his intentions with just concealed apathy, except the one old man, who cries with newly sharpened hatred, "Shove off! Shove off! Shove! 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 Shove off! Just you! Shove!" The third skillfully deflates his weakly smiling victim by telling him how the lobelias are doing, how many kittens the cat had, how the slate came off the scullery roof, and how no one has visited the patient for a fortnight because everybody had colds and feared to bring the jumpy germ into hospital. The patient's eyes ice over. He is uninterested in lobelias, the cat, the slate, the germ, flat on his back, drip-fed, his face the shade of a newly dug-up pharaoh, wearing his skeleton outside his skin, yet his wits as bright as a lighted candle. He is concerned only with the here and now, and requires to speak of nothing but his present predicament. It's not permitted. The fourth attempts to cheer his aged mother with light jokes, menacing as shell splinters. "They'll soon have you jumping around like a gazelle," he says. Playing in the football team, quite undeterred by the sight of kilos of plaster, chains, lifting gear, a pair of lethally designed crutches. "You'll be leapfrogging soon," he says, "swimming 10 lengths of the baths." All these unlikely prophecies. The old lady stares fearfully at her sick, sick offspring, thinking he has lost his reason, which, alas, seems to be the case. The fifth, a giant from the fields, with suit smelling of milk and hay, shifts uneasily from one bullock foot to the other, as though to avoid settling permanently in the antiseptic landscape. Occasionally he loses a scared glance sideways, as though fearful of what intimacy he may blunder on, or that the walls might suddenly close on him. He carries flowers, held lightly in fingers the size and shape of plantains, tenderly kisses his wife's cheeks, the brush of a child's lips, then balances motionless for 30 minutes on the thin chair. At the end of visiting time, he emerges breathless, blinking with relief into the safe light. He does not appear to notice the dusk. The sixth visitor says little, breathes reassurance, smiles securely, carries no black passport of grapes and visa of chocolate, has a clutch of cleaning washing. Unobtrusively stows it in the locker, searching out more, talks quietly to the sister, out of sight, out of earshot of the patient, arrives punctually as a tide, does not stay for the whole hour. Even when she is gone, the patient seems to sense her there, an upholding presence. The 7th visitor smells of barroom aftershave, often finds his friend sound asleep, whether real or feigned, is never determined. He does not mind, prowls the ward in search of second-class, lost-face patients, with no visitors, and who are pretending to doze or read paperbacks. He probes relentlessly the nature of each complaint, and is swift with such dilutions of confidence as, you'll be worse before you get better. 5 minutes before the bell punctuates visiting time, his friend opens an alarm clock eye. The visitor checks his watch. Market day. The Duck and Pheasant will still be open. Courage must be refueled. The 8th visitor looks infinitely more decayed, ill and infirm than any patient. His face is an expressive grey. He peers about with antediluvian eyes, as though from the other end of time. He appears to have risen from the grave to make this appearance. There's a whiff of white flowers about him, the crumpled look of a slightly used shroud. Slowly he passes the patient, bag of bulletproof homemade biscuits, a strong death-dealing cake to have with your tea, or a bowl of fruit so weighty it threatens to break his glass fingers. The patient, encouraged beyond measure, thanks him with enthusiasm, not for the oranges, the biscuits, the cakes, but for the healing sight of someone patently worse than himself. He rounds the crisis corner, begins a recovery. The 9th visitor is life. The 10th visitor is not usually named. That was Charles Causley's 10 Types of Hospital Visitor. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and listening. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.